Welcome to the Hello Sunday podcast with me, Nikki Hayden. This is the podcast that discusses everything self-development, spirituality and sobriety, and it wouldn't be me without a little sprinkling of humour. Whether you are just starting out on your journey of self-development or have been exploring these topics for years, are completely alcohol-free or just curious about living a more sober lifestyle, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be exploring topics in both solo episodes and with some amazing guest experts. So if you like what you hear, then please subscribe, rate and review. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Hello Sunday. Good to be back, guys. It's good to be back. Another week. Welcome back if you are a regular listener, and if you are just joining the party, then welcome. It's good to have you here. I'm back on form. I am back on form. Not to say that I wasn't on form last week, but I think it really does show what a difference just having your regular daily habits and those little things that you do day to day back into your routine can do for you. It's been a bit wild, actually. I didn't realise the difference. Well, I did realise the difference, but I think you forget, don't you? Obviously, the first few months of the year, I was militant with my routine, my habits, my fitness, my vitamins, my water intake, daily walks, yada, yada, yada. But then we went away, got poorly, and it all kind of went out the window, to be honest. You know, you get into survival mode, don't you? And I think that being in survival mode, you just do the absolute bare minimum to get by. So I wasn't taking my daily vitamins, certainly wasn't walking outside. I wasn't doing, I'd say 85% of the daily habits that make me feel good. No exercise, my sleep was all over the place. And just being back in that routine, just doing those daily habits is such a game changer for the mindset and for performance levels. And I think especially because the start of this year was so militant and so I just stuck to everything to the letter, the juxtaposition, that's a big word for you, isn't it? The difference between me doing that and then not doing most of it was just crazy. So I'm feeling a lot better. Yeah, I'm feeling a lot more in control with it. My business has flourished from just going back to the gym and getting my head back in the game and sticking to a bit of a time schedule. And I don't know if it's a me thing or a personality thing, or whether it's just, I think, to be honest, since I've been doing more self-development work, but just floating through the day and floating through life doesn't work for me anymore. I need to have goals and a vision and just day to day make that plan, week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, and be ticking stuff off. So she's back. It's all good. We are firing on all cylinders. Today's episode, to be honest, it's something I've wanted to talk about for a little while, and I guess I've kind of touched on the subject as I've been talking around other topics, and we've chatted about other self-development tools, and even with guests when we've spoken about sobriety as well, because this feeds into sober life, but it's also kind of a daily I guess just something that I wanted to remind you about, kind of day to day, whether you're doing the sober thing or not. It's kind of irrelevant, but it definitely feeds into that. And that is judgment from others. And actually, this came up so recently I have been having a little think about how I can engage with people for my business, how I can encourage people to share referrals. It's actually not that they don't want to. It's just that unless you directly ask for something, people tend not to think about it. They just, everyone's in their own bubble, aren't they? So I'd put a post up on LinkedIn just saying that I've always incentivized people to share candidates for roles. So if I've got a role and I was going to say if it's tricky, but even if it's not tricky, there's always a £250 voucher incentive for somebody to share someone that they know in their network for that role. And then if they get the role, I will always not reimburse them. What's the word? Reward them. So I've always done it for that side, and I've just never really thought about incentivizing people to share potential clients with me, or people that are business leaders that I could network with and potentially get work on. So I put a post up on my LinkedIn, and it just said that I would incentivize with a £250 voucher of choice. Now, the reason that I do it as a voucher and not cash is because as a business owner, it's far easier to justify and to not get in trouble with the tax man when you are sending vouchers to people. It's a lot more tricky to just send cash to people, because you could just be sending cash to your mate down the road from your business and putting it as a business expense, and it's highly illegal. And HMRC, which is the UK version of the IRS, are really clamping down on this stuff. So I've always just done vouchers because it's super easy, and at the end of the day, it's still cash, right? You could have a voucher for Amazon, you could have a voucher for a clothing store, you could have a voucher for a makeup or skincare store, or your favourite sporting goods. Sorry, that was my phone. I thought I'd put it on silent. This is real time. Probably won't be able to edit that out either, so apologies. But it's always real around here. So anyway, cut a long story short, I put this post up, and I had quite a few people respond saying, oh, this is a nice incentive and really great to see that you're doing something like this. And then I had this one guy, douchebag, if you will, who just commented back saying, £250, so-and-so, and he tagged another recruiter into the post who looks like Terry Tibbs as well, by the way. So he was definitely not kind of, I guess, a direct competitor with me. He's in a completely different sector and completely different demographic. And he was like, oh, he does £500 and cash. And then he was like, 250 quid, what are we in 2005? And at first, obviously, it got my back up, because I thought, how freaking rude. Like, why comment something like that? First of all, it's basically trolling, because the idea of a troll, or the definition of a troll, is somebody that puts a nasty or hateful comment on someone's post for basically no reason than to knock them down. So it's classic trolling, but also, like, there was just absolutely no need for it. If you don't like something, just scroll on by. So initially, the comment really got my back up. Anyway, I kind of sat on it and thought about it, and I just thought, do you know what? This guy is clearly judging from a place that he has no idea about. Like, he's not a business owner. He's not running any sort of incentive. He's making comments and making judgments and sharing those comments with me. And he's not even coming from a place of like understanding or knowing or being able to really kind of feel what that feels like, because he's not a business owner, and he's not somebody that's sharing incentives with his network. And it really actually made me think about a quote or a piece of writing or a paragraph from Teddy Roosevelt. Now, Teddy Roosevelt, and I think actually it was reshared in, what's her name? Brené Brown's book, Daring Greatly, I think it's called. Anyway, it was a piece of writing or a paragraph, and it was called The Man in the Arena. So, the man in the arena is basically referring to people who make comments and judge and mock you are never the people that are in the arena if you're in the arena. So they're never the people doing the thing. They're always just the onlookers and the spectators. So let me just read this to you, because this really resonated with me, and I remember reading it years ago, and when this guy made this comment, I just took a step back and thought, he's not even in the arena. So it says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who actually does strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while staring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And basically what that is saying is the person that does the thing, that tries, that is brave enough, has the courage enough to put themselves out there. For those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed, water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3 month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. Don't fucking listen to comments and judgments from people that have never done that. This guy wasn't incentivizing his audience. This guy didn't have his own business, didn't know how difficult it can be sometimes in quite a oversaturated market to get noticed, to get people to refer you and to share business and to invite you into their network. So it's far braver and far more admirable to do the thing and to try and to put yourself out there, even if you fail 100 times, than it is to just sit on the sidelines and make judgments and comments about people that are doing that thing. And there's been so many times in my life where this has been applicable. So yes, in business, from people who have never started their own business. I remember when I was in my previous business, there's a group of guys who were absolutely brilliant at their jobs, were really, really great recruiters, but they used to mock people that started their own businesses that were in the same sector as them. They'd call them like, bedroom recruiters, and he's sat on his own with his laptop in his bedroom. And I used to just think, yeah, and fair play to him. He started a business, whether that is sat on the end of his bed or whether he's got a huge office with 1,000 staff. It's still something that you've not done. It's still something that you've not put yourself out there and been brave enough to do. And if you don't want to do it, why mock it? Why judge it? It's not having any impact on your life. And when I started this podcast, I got no end of ribbing and mocking. I mean, I still do, to be honest, from, and I think I've said this before, mainly the males in our friendship group, who would say things like, oh, you've got a podcast, or you've not told us, mocking the fact that I have to market it and put it out there. Or they would make comments about the topics that I've spoken about, or, the self-development tools. And at first, it used to really get to me. But do you know what? When I stepped back and thought about it, I thought, nobody that has ever had their own podcast has ever mocked me, has ever judged, has ever made comments, because they know, they've walked this path. They know how freaking hard it is to put yourself out there, to be at the mercy of people mocking or taking the piss or judging you. And it's hard, it's really hard. There's millions of podcasts out there. To even get into the charts is so, so, so hard. And yet turning up week after week and putting yourself out there, talking about topics that won't necessarily interest everybody, that's brave and that's courageous. And it's something that I want to continue doing. And I'm not going to let a few small-minded people who don't have the courage to do that themselves or don't even want to do that themselves deter me from something that is a passion and that I absolutely love doing. And actually the people that have done what you want to do, have walked that path, will support you. Sophie Waddington, who was on a really early guest episode of this podcast, if you've not listened to that one, go back because it's brilliant. Her podcast now is absolutely flying. She's left her full-time role as a teaching assistant and gone full-time into self-development work. She's brilliant and she's been no end of support to me. Now, you'd think that people that were doing podcasting themselves would feel like, oh, you're in competition and not want to support, but it's honestly always the opposite. I've never experienced somebody who has been bitter or judgmental or made comments that have walked the path that I'm walking. And the same in business. When I was agency side, we were always pitted against other agencies, other recruiters, never befriend them, never share information with them. And actually what I realised when I started my business was that everyone that's started their own business is so supportive because they know how hard it is. They know that you have to fight tooth and nail for business. They know that you have to become a Swiss Army knife to be able to do all the marketing and admin and all of the accounting. And it's really, really difficult. And so they've got respect for people that, like themselves, have been willing to do that and willing to try. So this guy making that comment really made me think, he's not even in the arena. Why am I so bothered about what he thinks? And the answer to that is actually, it goes back to the tribal days. And again, I've spoken about this before, but we as humans have not evolved from that primal kind of primate monkey brain as quickly as technology and modern society has evolved. So in essence, our fears and our phobias and our fight or flight is still very much ingrained from those early days when we were in tribes, and actually being cast out of the tribe or being the black sheep or being the different one would mean that you would die. You wouldn't survive because you needed your tribe around you to fight with you and fight off predators and to help to hunt. And we don't have the ability yet to make sense of the difference between the feeling of somebody physically casting us out from our tribe all those hundreds and thousands of years ago, and actually just somebody making a comment to us, whether it be on social media or directly to us within our own network and peer group. It's the same feeling. It's the feeling of being different and not wanting to stand out too much. So actually, when people are making comments, making judgments, mocking you, take a step back and think, like, who is this coming from? Where is this coming from? And actually, are they even in the arena? Are they even somebody that's doing the thing? And I guarantee that they're not. I guarantee that those people will not be the ones that are also trying to forge that path. And this very much applies to sobriety or having a period away from drinking. When I first did my first 100 days sober, there wasn't that many people in my peer group and network that were also doing the same thing. There's a lot more now, but it was always the question of like, but why? And people were curious. And I've said it before, generally speaking, my support group have been amazing. They've been really, really supportive. But I speak to people all the time who get mocked or judged, oh, why aren't you being fun anymore? Oh, don't be boring, just have one. And it is always by people who have not done that, have not given up drink, you've got to ask yourself why. And it's always a projection of their own feelings. They're normally worried that their own drinking probably needs addressing. They're probably worried that the strength of mindset that you've got and the way that you are even willing to try this means that you might succeed. And then it's holding up a mirror and reflecting their own decisions and their own drinking habits and behaviour onto them. And people don't like that. People don't like having a mirror held up to them until they're ready to do it themselves. They don't like other people being successful if they feel like they're a little bit lazy. They don't like seeing people quit things and make life changes. That's why if you've ever started at the gym and got in shape, you'll probably find you get the odd comment of, oh, do you think that you're, a bloody fitness guru now? Or, oh, you're going to, you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or something really ridiculous. Maybe not Arnold Schwarzenegger if you're female, but you get the drift. You will get comments like that because people don't like to see others succeed when in their own lives, maybe that is something that they are struggling with. Maybe they're not in shape or they spend every evening watching Netflix with a takeaway. It's difficult to have that mirror held up to you. And so when people make those comments, when they make those judgments, when they mock you, especially if you're doing something like putting yourself out there on social media or creating a platform or a community or a podcast, it's easy. You're an easy target for people to make those judgments and to make those comments. And what I would say is look at who it is that's making those comments, because if that was my friend doing something, there's no way that I'd be making comments or making them feel uncomfortable. I'd be wanting to support them. There are times when you will do things in life and those around you who love you will just be trying to protect you. When I launched the business, there were a couple of people in my life who said, oh, but aren't we going into a tough market? Aren't we on the verge of a recession? Are you sure you want to do this? They weren't saying it. I mean, they were people that didn't have their own businesses, but they weren't saying it from a place of jealousy. They were saying it from a place of love and protection. And it was their own limiting beliefs that were being put onto me. And, fortunately, it was something that I really, really wanted to do and was really passionate about and knew that I could make it work. But had I not have been that confident, that might have rocked me a little bit. It might have made my mindset a little bit more, tricky, and it might have made me doubt myself. So I think when you are making those sorts of comments, or before you make those sorts of comments, have a think about where it's coming from. Are you trying to protect this person? And if so, is that coming from your own limiting beliefs? Or is it genuinely something that they're doing that could endanger them or put them in a position that could be, a little bit difficult that maybe you don't want them to be in? But again, is that just because you don't want them to be in it? Or is it genuinely because they're putting themselves in danger? And I'd say in the modern world, 9 times out of 10, it's not that they're putting themselves in danger. Unless they're going to bankrupt themselves or it's life or death, it's generally worth trying. When I moved to Holland, my family were absolutely terrified of me making an international move. And, a little bit selfishly, I guess, they didn't mock or judge, but they definitely put their own limiting beliefs onto me. And no, that didn't work out in the long run, but I'd got a safety net behind me. I'd got money to come back to. So I think it's just about understanding where those judgments and where those comments are coming from. Is that person sat on the sidelines spectating? Because if they are, then it's, generally speaking, it's not coming from a place of I've been there and I know what this is like, and I am worried that you are putting yourself in a position that is not going to be good for you. And if somebody is coming from that place, you'll know from the way that they approach it. It won't be mocking. It won't make you feel like shit. They will sit down and have a proper discussion with you. And if it's something that you are doing to better yourself, like giving up alcohol or going to the gym or eating healthier or getting a promotion at work, then you shouldn't be getting comments like that. And if you are, I would strongly suggest looking at the people in your life that those comments are coming from. Because for me, cutting people out that were making comments like that or were making me feel uncomfortable, like for instance, blocking that guy on LinkedIn, like, why are you even in my network? I don't need somebody like that in my network. You're either here to support me, cheer me on, and be, a pro. And when I say a pro, I don't mean a professional. I mean like a plus in my life, an advantage, somebody that is good to have around, or you're not, and I don't really need you around. And that really applies to everyone. There isn't really anyone in my life. If close family, so like my parents and my brother would make comments for my own kind of good and from a place of love, but they're never mocking, they're never judgmental. My nan's a whole other different kettle of fish because she was born in the 20s, and I think people like that have a very, very different generational attitude to most things that we do these days. But yeah, if it's trolls on social media, if it's people that are, I had somebody, this was a good one. I did a TikTok for the podcast and some guy just commented, "Nobody cares." And it really made me laugh because I was like, wow, you must be hurting inside to be commenting. And I didn't even know him. I did not know him. It was like, you must be hurting inside to be making comments like that on strangers' social media accounts. So I just wanted to share that today because it had come up really recently. And whether you are just going through a period of self-development and bettering yourself, whether you are sober curious or taking a break from alcohol or going sober forever or upgrading your life in any way, you're probably going to experience this at some point. And I just want you to remember about the man in the arena and look at where they're coming from. Look at the comments, look at the people that are making them. Just remember we're all those little tribal, monkey-brained people, Neanderthals, that feel cast out from the tribe when those comments come in. And actually, we don't need to fear that anymore. So go out there, do your thing, better yourself. And the people that are meant to be in your life will support you and they'll be around and they'll want to learn from you and they'll ask questions. And sometimes it's really good to look at the people that are there making the comments and making you feel like shit and question whether you need them around anymore. So I hope that you've enjoyed that. I hope that it's landed, made some sense. I am really, really keen to get your thoughts on what you would like to have as topics covered in future episodes. I'm going to do a social media post as well. So feel free to comment on there or email if you've got any ideas for guests. The guest thing is a really interesting one. The more reviews I get, the more likely I am to get into the podcast charts. And the more that you get into the podcast charts, the more that the platforms like Apple and Spotify share your podcast. And it's then that I can really start to invite guests on of, some notoriety. I've got ideas, but it's a really difficult one because they tend to need you to have a decent audience and platform to make it worth their while. And when you're competing with really big podcasts, it's tricky, so I think you guys are the answer to unlocking better guests. The more reviews I get, the more likely I am to be able to get the guests on because it does just push you up the charts. So I would never ever stop asking for reviews and follows and shares because honestly that is the only way that we're going to get any kind of traction and movement with this. So I appreciate every single one of you, and I hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you again next week. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at HelloSundayPod, or you can email us on hellosundaypod@outlook.com. Have a great week.